Robots, droids, cyborgs, androids, computers, generally speaking, artificial intelligence. The world of cinema, with the support of science fiction literature, has over the years developed a typical model of scaring people against technological development. These most terrifying cinematic synthetics are therefore a reflection of something we know from personal experience. We ourselves have gone against God and nature, so we are afraid that our most perfect creations will also eventually turn against us. And it doesn't matter whether we're talking about a supercomputer without a face and without an anthropomorphic figure, or a robot with clearly human features. All of them are created in human likeness, but with the idea of overcoming human limitations, which, however, may bring disaster instead of development. HAL 9000, 2001, A Space Odyssey. There is something profoundly terrifying about how well Stanley Kubrick predicted the future precisely in terms of the impact of artificial intelligence on our lives. The artificial intelligence model he presented was used to guide a spacecraft. The HAL 9000 supercomputer is very precise in what it does, and the human features it has include, above all, a dispassionate, metallic, terrifyingly calm voice and a piercing look expressed by a characteristic red diode. In my opinion, it is difficult to find an example in cinema that would be more minimalist and at the same time equally terrifying. What is terrifying about HAL is primarily how lazily he moves from the position of performing programmed duties to the position of self-conscious rebellion.
I'm sorry, Dave. I'm afraid I can't do that.
These are the words that human power ends. Gunslinger, The World of the Wild West. I like Yul Brynner because he is an extremely distinctive actor. I like him primarily for this role, because it laid the foundations for what we saw in Cameron's Terminator. Here we have a plot concept taken from Michael Crichton's head, outlined precisely to tell the story of the rebellion of artificial intelligence against humans. This time, a fully modern, futuristic, post-industrial amusement park served as the arena for this conflict. With every confrontation with the Wild West world, I wonder if this is not a science fiction vision of the museum, where the exhibits, instead of lying lifeless, will simply speak to us. But back to Brynner, his version of the robot, the Dark Gunslinger, is an example of this cinematic humanoid synthetic, characterized by an unwavering desire to take down its creator. And he is extremely convincing in this stubbornness. Ash, eighth passenger of the Nostromo. In the category of humanoid robot, Red Android, this is one of the most memorable cinematic examples. A member of the crew of the Nostromo ship with the face of Ian Holm is cold and consistent in his actions. He does not particularly want to integrate with the rest. In fact, he has evil plans for them, especially when it is revealed what he let on board the ship.
There is an explanation for this, you know.
Ash is an artificial intelligence who is trusted as a science officer aboard a spaceship, which he uses to betray humans. However, his plans are predicted by Ripley, which leads to a confrontation between them. The scene in which Ash orally rapes the main character is so surprising and so piercing that it ranks among the most original clashes between man and machine in cinema. As an aside, it's worth noting that Ash is something of an introduction to what Ridley Scott developed in the concept of David in Prometheus, an android that sends a unique biological weapon to humans. T-1000, Terminator 2, Judgment Day. It seems to me that the sponsor of this list should be all T-800 models that we either see in retrospectives or are placed in the main action. Assuming that we are talking about models without a biosynthetic suit, only mechanical skeletons. But not wanting to include Terminator twice in this already long list, I would like to appreciate Cameron's idea of showing a humanoid apart from the traditional perception of mechanics and robotics. T-1000 is a type of cyborg made by Skynet using a multi-component liquid metal alloy. The advantage of this model over the above-mentioned T-800 is that it can take any form. It is not based on one specific coding. In this way, the T-1000 becomes an ideal cyborg for special tasks, especially when it comes to conducting an investigation, finding a given person and eliminating him. At this point, you may wonder how much easier the detective's work would be if he could take the form of any person he chose. But one could also go further by speculating how much terrifying the scope of the killer's capabilities would be if he could become the closest person we know. In this respect, The T-1000 is a perfect Terminator eliminator. Mark 13, Hardware. Hardware is a film that managed to combine two seemingly contradictory subgenres of SF, cyberpunk and post-apocalypse. On the one hand, we have technological progress, and on the other, we have the collapse of civilization. The former aspect in the film is reflected by a certain deadly droid, the latter by the setting of the disaster-stricken world in which the film takes place. Found in the desert, brought to life to exterminate, it receives a second breath right after the cables are reconnected. The name of the robot is a reference to a very eloquent quote from the Bible, describing Jesus' catastrophic predictions regarding the Jerusalem temple. In short, we are destined to end. Showing hardware at times, it resembles a screening of another film on this list, Alien, because Mark is such a monster made of sheet metal and cables. Just as relentless and just as deadly. A bit of Terminator was added to it and we got a B-movie that is simply iconic today. It's a pity that the sequel, which was planned for the 1990s, did not come to fruition. Gort, The Day the Earth Stood Still. A spaceship lands on Earth. This scene, which seems essential to the genre, was perfectly presented in The Day the Earth Stood Still. But let's move on, because the fun doesn't end there. At some point, the door opens and a mysterious person comes ashore. A creature with human physiognomy, Klaatu is supported by a mysterious-looking robot. Gort is a model figure for science fiction because he perfectly captures the fears associated with the loss of human control over technological development, but also suggests that this lack of control over what the future will bring may come from space. In the 1952 film, Gort is a kind of weapon that is aimed at humanity and threatens to be fired if Klaatu fails to comply with the conditions set by Klaatu. What's the point? The alien is concerned about the state of humanity, war tendencies, and an unecological approach to life, so he decides to wag his finger for the first and last time. In this case, Gort is a tool of fear.